So E3 has come and gone, and there's some mixed feelings floating around. Personally, I don't think there's anything to be angry about, but I definitely hear some people's disappointments, and I feel ya. I am, however, so excited about the trailer we saw for the sequel to Breath of the Wild. It's a minute and 39 seconds, but it is packed with details. So let's take a look at some of those details. The trailer opens up with some simple shots of Malice, pretty much lining up with what we've seen before. But hold up, did you see that? It's a blink and you'll miss it moment, but if we stop here, we can see Link as we saw him in the 2019 trailer, but it seems his arm gets covered in Malice in this shot. You can see the handle of the Master Sword off to the right here, and the Malice is up to just about his shoulder. Naturally, it looks like Link is in some pain here. What's unclear is if this causes Link to lose his arm entirely, or if it's just severely injured or corrupted. But dang, it looks like we're already off to a dark start. After some more flowing Malice, we see a brief shot of zombie Ganondorf as we had previously seen him in the 2019 trailer, but this time we get more of a full body shot of him without that hand pinning him down. Now my buddy RMFH pointed out to me that it looks like he has several holes in his body and hands here. It's unclear what exactly caused this, or if it's just from decay, but dang if he doesn't look evil. There's not much in the background to go off of, but my guess is that this is pretty well the same scene from the 2019 trailer so far, which leads me to my next point. Back in 2019, we saw this shot in the trailer of what seemed like the floor breaking underneath Zelda and Link trying to grab her hand, while this green hand grabs Link's other hand. Now, in this new trailer, we see this shot of Zelda falling into this pit, implying to me that Link's attempt to catch her may not have been successful after all. Now, there's something to note here just about game development in general, and that is that we can only speculate when looking at these trailers. For example, the events here when compared to the 2019 trailer could just be in addition to or replacing those scenes. We don't know. Just think back to Twilight Princess, which had events in its trailers that were similar but ultimately altered in the final game, such as Link's initial transformation into wolf form. Things change is my point, but it's also all we have to go off of for now, so we do what we can. So, moving on. After that darker start, we get something a bit more bright. This next shot opens up with Link falling in the sky in a manner very similar to that of Skyward Sword. The camera shifts over and there's a lot to see in this shot. Link has some new clothes it seems, his hair is flowing and not in a ponytail like usual, and most importantly is his arm, which seems like it has been fused with the green energy arm we saw previously. We'll talk more about that in a moment, but it looks really cool. In addition to that, there's these markings on Link's shoulder and body, which could be scars from where the Malice had injured him, or could be markings from the arm itself and where it has fused to him. There's also some floating islands here, which have quite a lot of trees, roads, and even a body of water it seems. The next shot we have Link again in the sky, this time with his paraglider. He's once more wearing the same outfit as the last shot, except with some different bits. It looks to me like the change between the sand boots and snow boots as seen in the first game, but they're slightly different, so odds are that these are new clothing items entirely. Speaking of new items, take a good look at that gorgeous shield. It looks to be about the same size and shape as a knight's shield, but looks to be made of wood and has a painted triangle motif along the bottom and a heavily stylized Sheikah eye symbol on the top. The paraglider itself looks a bit different too. It now has these tassels and sports some new extra designs and has a new purple color. The lighting makes it hard to notice here, but you'll see more in a moment. The bow that Link has there also seems to be a new one as well, not matching any bow from the first game that I can think of. Once more, there's these floating islands with plenty of trees. These ones near the top left look like they have some ancient pillars and structures. Meanwhile, to the right, we have what looks like a massive building of some kind. It's hard to make out just how large it actually is, as much of it is obscured by clouds, but this could be some sort of huge dungeon perhaps. It actually looks like we can make out a glimpse of this same building through the clouds here in this previous shot as well. Next, we see Link running on top of some of these sky islands. There's a lot of ruins here, and many people are probably going to draw connections to Skyward Sword, naturally. But personally, I see a lot more similarity in the architecture here to that of the Wind Tribe from Minish Cap. Maybe I'm reaching though, it could be Zonai stuff. This shot really gives us a nice sense of the varying levels of elevation with these islands though, and it looks absolutely gorgeous. This looks to be some sort of boss enemy, and there's so much going on with this guy. First off, it looks like he is powered by the same green energy like the green arm, which we can see in his body here. There's this strange symbol on his front as well, which almost looks like a broom. And he's got these arms which connect to these floating hands. The iconography with his arms and his eye here look very similar to the symbol that's painted on Link's new shield as well. I hate to throw this word around, but based on these squares but also swirling type patterns, it seems like a connection to, yes I said it, the Zonai ruins in my opinion, with the boss enemy at least. The architecture around these ruins seems to be a little bit different to me, but it might be some sort of offshoot. The next shot is a bit familiar. We have Link here with his new purple paraglider and the outfit from the 2019 trailer, which seems like a combination of the Hylian tunic and the Champion's tunic from the first game. He's flying down in central Hyrule. In fact, you can see the ranch ruins out in the background here and the bottomless swamp to the right here. There's a bokoblin camp, and it seems like they've let their horns get a bit overgrown. But as Link approaches, a stone talus rises up, showing that the Boko camp is built on top of it. Fighting these guys is definitely going to be tricky. If we dial back a bit, we can actually see the stone talus's weak point, that ore cluster here, but the Bokos have cleverly built barricades to protect that weak spot. There's also spikes on the bottom of the wooden structures, meaning it'll be difficult to climb up. It seems like without the right tools, this will be a difficult fight for sure. This next scene seems really important to me. We see the green energy arm again, and I personally believe that this is the moment where it fuses to Link. You can see the markings on his shoulder again, which glow like the hand here. So my thought is that the arm will glow when using some abilities, but will look dark like this most of the time. We get a good look at the hand here as well, which have these sort of gold accessories on top and have these patterns on them of glowing lines and circles. This is distinctly different from the blue Sheikah energy, and for me calls more to mind the magic of the Twilight race from Twilight Princess. But as much as I would like to see that, I don't think that's the case. Knowing Nintendo, odds are that this is a new and ancient type of magic, probably relating back to the Zonai, but maybe not. We'll see. The next shot seems to be on or near Death Mountain, based on the terrain here. There's a large spike ball coming down the hill, and Link uses an ability that seems like an improved version of Stasis, but it's a bit different. First of all, there's no Sheikah Slate in this trailer at all. Link instead uses his new hand to do this, and when it freezes, we get this grayscale effect similar to the effect of time freezing in Hyrule Castle from the Wind Waker. I believe this version of Stasis is actually more like a time rewinding feature. Link does not need to strike the object to build up kinetic energy this time, and instead we see echoes of the object's path that it took, and a thread showing the path it rolled down the hill. Then when it releases, it reverses back up the exact path that it took before, erasing those echoes as it goes. This time rewind effect only seems to impact the targeted object, as we see bokoblins and a moblin able to freely move during this before they get hit. Also, on top of the bokoblins having new overgrown horns, the moblin here also seems to have changed a bit, with his horn being replaced by this egg thing. I don't know. I have no idea. Either way, this time rewinding mechanic seems like a really cool way to build off of the concept of stasis, but I also hope that stasis as we know it won't be gone entirely. We'll see. So the next shot here, Link is battling some kind of disgusting worm creature that is sticking out of a cave wall, using what seems to be a flamethrower of some kind. This object is actually attached to what looks like a regular wooden shield. The item itself looks to be in the shape of a dragon head, and we can see for a brief moment more of that green energy inside of the mouth and eye on it. Link is also once again sporting his 2019 trailer outfit, but the sword on his back is definitely not one we've seen before. So just like the bow and shield I mentioned earlier, it definitely looks like we'll once more have plenty of weapon diversity. The enemy here kind of reminds me of a moldworm or a landmola from classic Zelda games, but encountered underground this time. Either way, the fire seems pretty effective against it, as we can see it reeling back in pain, and exposing what could be its weak point here. This next shot is really interesting. We see this swirl sort of divot in the ground, and this drop of water sort of reversing up into into the air, and then what seems like Link diving upwards. His animation is not unlike him swimming up a waterfall in Breath of the Wild. Then he hits the bottom of this island. As he does this, the same swirling green energy from the first trailer is seen around him, and his green arm glows. Then he's able to climb through the stone with what looks like it could be a portal opening on either side of it. During our post-direct discussion yesterday, we mentioned that this may be the way that Link ascends up to these floating islands, using a magic that launches him skyward at certain locations. As Link stands now atop this sky island, we can see Hyrule below. It was pointed out to me by my friend RMFH during our discussion yesterday that this sky island is directly above the Thundra Plateau, a known Zonai structure, and the architecture of this floating island matches those that we saw previously with certain Zonai motifs. So it's possible that these Zonai ruins and structures around Hyrule could act as points to launch ourselves upwards to these places. The scenery here is magnificent. We can see the Gerudo Highlands in the background, and more closely, the Hyrule Ridge area, including the Ceres Scablands, the Tengar Canyon, Wash's Bluff, and the ancient columns down below. Where the Great Tabantha Bridge should be is obscured by clouds, so it's unknown if it still stands. Interestingly, there should actually be two Sheikah shrines visible from here. However, they're nowhere to be seen. In this screenshot that RMFH sent me, you can clearly see them from this exact spot in the first game. What this means for those structures is unclear, if they retreated underground or something else, but whatever the case, it seems to me that the shrines won't play as important a role, if any, in the sequel, which is okay with me since we already went through 120 of them, even more if you count the DLC. Something to note on these ruins is what looks like a lamp here, which I assume would glow at night. It shares its design with certain parts of the boss golem enemy that we saw before. And finally, we see what looks to mirror the final shot of the 2019 trailer, but this time far more up close, as Hyrule Castle rises out from the ground and is pulled up into the sky. We see Zelda's room and study here, which, despite what some have said, actually stays intact during this. Instead, it's actually this tower behind it that falls apart. As the castle is torn from its foundation, not all of the castle grounds actually go up. We can see that these guardhouses stay put on the ground, but the main structure of the castle does indeed move. We get to see flaming Malice beneath the castle, which seems to be what is pushing it upwards out of the ground. And one final shot of this scenery taken from near the Crenel Hills. Interestingly, between these two shots, it looks like there's actually a section of earth or stone, or perhaps a buried structure beneath the castle that remains attached to the ground. We can see it sticking out underneath here. So it may not be floating entirely, but perhaps just elevated and being held up by this structure beneath it. Castletown still appears to be in its ruined state that we saw in Breath of the Wild, meaning that those hopes of seeing it rebuilt aren't quite realized. Sorry about that. And we get a spooky sort of rendition of Zelda's Lullaby here as well, before we see 2022, the scheduled year of release on screen, hopefully. So there's a lot to unpack with this trailer here, and a lot of theories floating around, some of which I would like to address now. First off, there's no Sheikah Slate in this trailer at all, meaning that things like this stasis ability are done using Link's new energy hand. Now, many people have been tossing around this idea of there being two versions of Link in this game, but I personally don't believe that to be the case. The first bit that people mention is his hair and his clothes. Well, his hair was already this long. He just doesn't have it in a ponytail here, but you could already have different outfits and hairstyles in the first game. So I don't think that his differing appearances in this trailer are any indication of this having multiple playable characters. Second is his arm. Clearly something happened to Link's arm here, and he probably loses the Master Sword, which we can see him holding in this shot, but not in the rest of the trailer. Then this green hand comes in to heal him or fuse with him somehow, leading to his arm now looking like this. Now people think that this shiny hand Link is actually a different character from Champion Tunic Link, but even in this shot where he has the Champion's Tunic, we can still see that he still has this new hand. Just look at the difference between his left and right hands here, guys. A lot of people also look at the lack of floating islands being visible between these ground shots and these aerial shots and assume that this means time travel. For me, honestly, I don't don't know. It could just be a draw distance thing, or it could just be that they're not visible from the ground, or that they specifically chose camera angles that would obscure them. To me, the evidence for time travel just feels too much like a leap, but who knows. Lastly, the music in this trailer seems to be a new track that we've never heard before, aside from the short rendition of Zelda's Lullaby, and this bit which sounds the same as the 2019 trailer. But I just had to check because Nintendo always does stuff like this, and yep, if you play the trailer in reverse, there's a section here which sounds like the main Breath of the Wild theme. It's only for a moment, but it's pretty neat. So that's everything I could pick out from this trailer. What do you guys think about it all? And is there anything that I missed? I would love to know your thoughts, so please let me know down below, and stay tuned for more Zelda content coming very soon. All right, guys, that's everything from me. I will catch you all very soon. Bye-bye. Thank you so much for watching this video. I just wanted to take a quick second to say thank you to those who supported me on Patreon, in particular those who supported at the cheese tier or higher, and that includes Tetra, Brenda, Justin, Callie, Finley, and Grey Mage. Thank you all so much for the support, and I will catch you next time. Bye bye.